Hello, and welcome to your subpar content that I promised. Today I'm going to be going through the steps of how I make a pretty basic beef pot roast in the crock pot. It's only my second time making it, so I really hope that it doesn't turn out like garbage. Okay, so let's go. So I like to kind of prep and cut my vegetables first. So that's my carrots, my potatoes. I use just regular baby carrots, mini gold potatoes, but I like to prep all of that stuff, my onion, before I start to brown my beef chuck roast on the stove. I'm just using beef for stew meat, value pack of course, bees on a budget. So I like to prep all of this stuff first, cut my carrots pretty small so that way they cook evenly in the crock pot throughout the day. I do cook on a low heat so that way it can kind of simmer all throughout the day. All the flavors can kind of get in there and get going. So I'm going to prep all of these vegetables and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start chopping up my potatoes too. Again, you kind of want to make them a little bit smaller and as even as possible so that way they all cook the same amount of time. And as far as proportions go, that's obviously going to be up to you and how many people you're feeding in your family. For me, it's just my husband and I, so I try to not make super big batches. Obviously, you can freeze stuff and save it for later, which we do that a lot, but I also don't want to waste any food, so that'll be up to you. So yeah, just prepping all of the veggies, and then here in a moment, we'll get our beef started in the pan on the stove. I like to just do salt and pepper to taste with a little bit of garlic seasoning and some olive oil. All right, so coming through, cutting my onion. So I'm just gonna say right now, if anybody has a better way to cut an onion, please feel free, because I've watched videos and I'm like, I don't know how they do that. Professional cooks, please don't come at me. I'm very much an amateur. But I can tell you right now, I just cut this bad boy open. I'm crying already. So this is gonna be a good one. No, I don't have any gum, so I can't really help with that. So yeah, my eyes are fucking sweating right now. Pardon the language. But yeah, if anybody has any options or suggestions for better cutting a devil onion, please let me know. Okay, so here we are in our pot. All of our veggies are in here. I browned the meat on the stove again, just salt and pepper to taste with a little bit of garlic seasoning. And so now I'm gonna add the meat to the pot. Some people do like to strain the meat out. Why? You want all that goodness in there. If I'm wrong, I don't care. So I'm just gonna dump all the meat in there with its little juices. Just browned each side. Obviously you don't wanna overcook it on the stove because otherwise your meat will turn out pretty tough because it's gonna cook low and slow in the pot. Now we're gonna start adding the rest of our delicious goodness. I'm gonna start with the beef broth. I like to use low sodium, hopefully you can see that, organic beef broth. You could always add more salt later. So you're gonna wanna add enough to where you cover everything. I got 3 containers of it. The recipe that I'm kind of working off of is it's kind of a haphazard recipe where it's like pour until your heart desires. I always grab 3 just in case some of the liquid contents go down as the cooking process is going, so I can add more later. And I'm not losing any flavoring. I don't like to add water. I do confess I like to use Better Than Bouillon seasoning, but I also, again, get the low sodium one to try to not add too much salt content into it, because you're already getting a lot of flavor from other seasonings that you can use. You don't need all that salt. So you want to get everything covered. I'm going to hold off on using the other beef broth for now, and then we'll kind of see where we're at as the cooking goes on. One of the ingredients is going to be a low sodium vegetable juice. So I just use original V8. You just want 1 cup. Please don't come at me. I could not find my damn measuring cup, okay? So we're using a baking cup. Sue me. There's that. You also want to add in some tomato paste. I always just get one of the little containers and I only do about 2 spoonfuls. You don't need a lot. It just kind of helps add some extra flavoring as the cooking process goes on and everything kind of melds together. And then now you're just going to add in your seasoning. So again, salt and pepper to taste. I did do salt and pepper on the meat, but I'm going to add some more. I also like to use more garlic. Again, you could always add more later. This is to just try to get some of the flavoring incorporated as you start the cooking in the crock pot. That's a little bit of crushed rosemary because I'm an absolute fan of it. Parsley, because I also like to do rosemary and olive oil bread to serve with this, and I cook that up in the oven, and that's always really, really good. So I'm gonna kind of use this spoon to try to break up this paste. It's obviously gonna break up once this warms up in the pot, so I'm not too concerned about it right now. You just kind of want to get all of this stuff mixed around, the seasonings, make sure everything's covered up. I probably will need to add some more beef broth here in a little bit. Now I know some people like to add the flour to their meat while it's cooking on the stove when they brown it. I don't. I like to add my flour later and I make a roux out of the juice once it's cooked up. And then I go ahead and thicken it up that way. You don't have to do flour, obviously, if you're working more on like a keto type of diet. Potatoes, obviously, you don't want those in there. You could always just do other vegetables. I'm also going to add peas later, but the peas I don't add until about 30 minutes before I'm ready to serve. And I do use frozen peas so that way they're not mushy inside the soup. But if you're working more off of a keto diet and you don't want to do flour, that's fine. You'll just have a little bit more runny of a soup, or you could do less broth. Now I did one time do a soup where I tried to thicken it with almond flour, just not the same effect. It was super, super grainy. You can try it if you want to, but I just did not see the effect that I wanted. So I'm going to cook this on low for about 7 to 8 hours. Again, 30 minutes before I'm ready to serve, I'm going to go ahead and add in the peas and then we'll see where we're at. Alrighty, so our stew has been in the crock pot now for almost 7 hours actually on low heat. I went ahead and added my little slurry of flour mixed with some of the juices, and I just added that. Now I'm a big fan of thicker soups, so I did quite a bit. What you don't want to do, and I've learned this the hard way with soups obviously, is adding the flour directly into your soup because you're going to get a lot of clumps. So you want to take some of the juice out, put it in a separate bowl, mix your flour, and then add it in. Turn the heat down. So I turned it down to low, and I'm just going to let this thicken up. And here in a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and add in the peas, and then I'm going to start prepping my bread. Again, if you're trying to do like a keto thing, you don't want to add the flour. Obviously, that's up to you. You'll just have a little bit more watery of a soup, which is fine, and you can just do a little bit less broth. One thing that I did do as well to add a little bit more flavor is I did add the Better Than Bouillon roasted beef base, just 1 tablespoon. I know I said I like to use the low sodium one. Unfortunately, that is not the one that I bought. So I'm glad I didn't add a lot of salt because this does have a lot of salt content, so just be careful. So yeah, here in a few minutes, we'll see if this thickens up. If it doesn't thicken up to my likeness, I will add a little bit more of a slurry. We'll do that, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so here we are, we're back. We're a little bit thicker than what we were before. I'm pretty happy with this consistency, so I don't think that I'm gonna add any more flour. You of course always can. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add in my green peas. My husband is not a big fan of peas. I certainly don't mind them, but he's gotta get his vegetables somewhere, so he's just gonna have to suck it up. I think the peas obviously give it a little bit more body, a little color, makes it look more traditional. But in reality, I mean, you could add any freaking vegetables you want in here. I do like it a little bit more traditional, so that's what I do. So of course, whatever veggies that you want to add. I have a friend who really enjoys zucchini, so they always put zucchini in their beef stew. I think that's weird, but whatever you want to add, or I guess really whatever's in season would be